My father and I have always been special. We are Christians, but not just any Christians. We see visions. My dad often gets them, and so do I. Some are small, others terrifying. After my biological mother passed away, I moved to the U.S. to live with my dad and stepmom. We were a religious family, always in church, always praying. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. One night, I fell asleep and had a dream so vivid, it felt like I was living it. In the dream, I saw our old house back in my home country. My twin sister and I were watching TV when a news broadcast interrupted the show. The anchor's voice was urgent as he reported that a mad woman had escaped from a psychiatric hospital. "Lock your doors," he warned. "Do not let anyone in." The announcement came at 2 p.m., but for some foolish reason, my sister and I didn't lock the doors until 7 p.m. By then, it was too late. I went to secure the back door, but when I got there, I saw her. A woman dressed in blue jeans, a black shirt, and green shoes. She was lurking near the door, her head turning slightly like she was listening, checking if anyone was inside. My heart pounded. Then, above me, I saw something even more shocking: my mother. She was in the sky, watching over me, her hands moving as if she were trying to guide me. I wanted to reach out, to call to her, but before I could, she began to fade, disappearing into the clouds. Then, the woman outside moved. Without warning, she threw a dagger straight at me. I felt it pierce my body, the pain knocking me to the ground. But just as quickly as it had hit me, I woke up. My body was frozen in place. Sleep paralysis. I knew this feeling well, but something was different this time. My heart was racing, my breathing shallow, and I had this overwhelming sense of dread, as if something from the dream had followed me into reality. Minutes passed before I could finally move again. Shaken, I immediately reached for my phone and called my dad. He didn't pick up. I didn't even hear his phone ringing, even though he was just one room away. That made no sense. Minutes later, he walked into my room, concern on his face. I told him everything. He listened closely, then took my hands and prayed with me. "We'll go to church tomorrow," he said firmly. "Whatever this is, we will not let it control you." The next day, we went to church as planned. I felt safe there, surrounded by prayer and worship. But then, I saw her, the woman from my dream. She was standing in the church, her black shirt, blue jeans, and green shoes exactly as I had seen them before. My blood ran cold. My body tensed. I couldn't breathe. My dad noticed immediately and rushed to my side. "What's wrong?" he asked. I pointed at her, barely able to speak. "That's her, the woman from my dream." We turned back to look again, but she was gone. After that day, we never saw her in church again. I don't know if she was real, if she was something spiritual, or if she was a warning of something bigger. All I know is that I saw her, and I'll never forget her face. I always knew I was different. Ever since I was a child, I had dreams, visions, of things before they happened. Some were small, like knowing when someone would call me. Others were terrifying, like seeing my uncle and aunt's death days before they happened. And every time I had these dreams, I experienced sleep paralysis. When I turned 20, my mom and I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment. The living room was empty, just bare walls and a cold floor. Only the bedroom had furniture, and that's where my mom and I spent most of our time. Then came the night that changed everything. My mom had overdosed on her medication. She was lying in bed, unconscious. I was in the room with her when I felt it, the heavy weight pressing down on my chest. My body froze. I knew what was happening. It was another episode of sleep paralysis. But this time, something was different. I wasn't dreaming. I saw him. A man, no, a creature, stood in the room. His skin was covered in a thick, slimy substance that glistened under the dim light. His horns were long and sharp, curving out of his skull like weapons. His eyes glowed a deep, unnatural red. And he was moving. Straight toward my mother. I tried to move, to scream, but my body refused to obey. I watched helplessly as the demon knelt beside her, his clawed hands reaching for her throat. Then, without hesitation, he started choking her. My mother's body jerked. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she struggled for air. Her hands twitched, weakly trying to fight off something she couldn't even see. Tears filled my eyes as I silently screamed inside my own head, begging my body to move, to do something, anything. Seconds stretched into what felt like hours. My mom's gasps became weaker. Her body started to go still. And then, the paralysis lifted. I shot up, my body finally my own again, and lunged for my mom. The demon was gone, vanished as if he had never been there. But my mother was still gasping, still fighting for air. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and called 911, my voice breaking as I told them what had happened. The paramedics arrived just in time. My mom survived. To this day, I don't know if what I saw was real or if it was some kind of hallucination caused by the fear of losing her. Maybe it was something dark, something beyond my understanding. Maybe it was just the result of her overdose. I don't know. But what I do know is this: that night, I saw something. And I pray I never see it again. I will never forget that night, the night I wished I had just stayed home. My friends and I had planned to go out. There was this new club in Nairobi, near Westlands, called Club, and everyone was talking about it. The music, the lights, the people, it all sounded fun. I was excited, but deep inside I felt strange. Like something wasn't right. But I ignored it. When we got there, the place was alive. Bright lights flashed, people laughed, and the DJ played loud music that made the floor shake. I danced, I laughed, I even made new friends. That's when I met her. She was sitting at the bar, wearing a red dress, alone, staring at everyone. I don't know why, but I walked up to her, and we started talking. She smiled the whole time, but her eyes, I don't know how to explain it, they didn't match her smile. They were too still. Too quiet. She said her name was Akinyi, and that she was just visiting Nairobi for the weekend. I didn't think too much about it. We laughed and even talked about the silly boys we met in the club. Later, when my friends got busy, she offered to drop me home. It sounded safe. I mean, she was a lady like me. So, I agreed. Once we got into her car, the air inside felt too cold. We kept talking about random things. School, boys, the club. But suddenly, she tried to hold my hand and leaned too close. I pulled away quickly. "What are you doing?" I asked. She just smiled and said nothing. Angry and uncomfortable, I stepped out of her car. She called after me, asking for my number. I didn't want trouble, so I quickly gave her a fake number. She smiled again, but this time the smile made me feel cold. I walked away, fast, hearing the sounds of the city behind me. Nairobi at night is never quiet, but this time, it felt empty. Then I realized I wasn't alone. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. It was her. She was following me. I froze. She walked up slowly and said, "You forgot something, your jacket and your phone number." I swallowed hard. Somehow, she knew I lied. I gave her another number, also fake. She stared deep into my eyes and softly asked, "Are you sure this is the right one?" My heart pounded. I forced a weak smile and said, "Yes, it's the correct one." I turned quickly and kept walking. But then, I saw her standing right in front of me again, blocking the path. Oh. I had left her behind just seconds ago. This time, her eyes had turned pale, like glass, and her smile was gone. Before I could scream, everything around me spun, and I fell into darkness. I woke up the next morning inside her car. It was parked by the riverside near Karura Forest. I was alone, but my jacket was neatly folded on my lap. My phone was gone. The strangest thing? I didn't remember how I got there. I looked around. The city was waking up, but Akinyi was nowhere to be found. When I got home, my friends told me they had seen me leave the club with her, but no one saw me again after that. Until today. I still don't know how she got in front of me on that street, or how I passed out. But I do know this. Since that night, when I walk alone near rivers, forests, or even quiet streets, I sometimes hear her soft voice behind me. You forgot something. Your real number.